All right. Finding equations of trig graphs the right way. We're going to be working with here. So when we're trying to find trig graphs, we're going to do this in a 4-step process. Like, dang, that's a lot of steps. Yes, it is. Step number 1, determine if your graph is sine or cosine. So, reminder from when we've been graphing, we have some clues a bit when we're doing this. So, might not be a bad idea to jot some of this down, even though we're going to have it in video, and I've got it over there on the sideboard as well. When we're looking at sine graphs again are kind of like your S shape as you're going here. They kind of go up, they kind of go down, they come back up. Whereas a cosine graph just looks more kind of like a curvy U over a period. So, typically when we start to try to find these equations, the first thing we're going to do is look to see what type of trig function we have. And I always say, I like to start at the axis here. So what does this look like for number 1? Does this look like a sine or a cosine graph? Cosine, okay? If we start at the very beginning, I see the max at the beginning, I see the max at the end, okay? So I would definitely go along with it. This is probably a cosine graph. So that's our first. Play with that, see what I think. Second step is going to be to find our K value, to see what our vertical shift is going to be. And to do that, we are going to find a minimum and a maximum on our graph. Okay, it hasn't been that long. We can do this. Find the min and the max. Put a little dot on them if we want to. And we're going to find the average of that, because that is going to end up giving us a little bit of help with our center line. So I look at this and I go, okay, so let's see here. We've got a minimum at -4. We've got a maximum at 0. I need to find the middle. Some of you are just going to be able to eyeball it and do it. That's fine. But otherwise, -4 divided by 2 is -2. And that's my center line. But that center line value also tells me how much I have or will be shifting. So I'm going to tuck that here on the end, because typically we do the A, then our trig function, B, X minus C. We're not doing horizontal shifting. Just going to be doing a little bit of vertical now and then. So we got our K value. Not so bad so far, hopefully at least. Let's try the next one. Next, we need to find the period of the graph. The easiest way to find the period is to go from maximum to maximum or minimum to minimum and see how far that is. So here, this is probably going to be our easiest way of going. I could have done it down here as well with the mins. You'll get the same answer. So I look at this one and I go, okay, if I'm doing it with my 2 maxes, how far is it from 0 to 6 pi? My period would be 6 pi. If I'd have done it down here with the minimums, 3 pi to 9 pi, 9 minus 3 is still 6, so it doesn't matter. However, that's not what I want to stick in my equation, because it's not the period that's in my equation, it's the b value. So since we know that the period is 2 pi over b, and I also know in actuality that my period is 6 pi, I can make me a little proportion here, which I can then solve and figure out what b is. Or you might be able to figure it out without playing with a proportion. I don't know. So if I cross multiply and divide by whatever's with b, I find out that my b value for a period of 6 pi is going to be 1/3. So we tuck that in our b slot, and whether you want to use x as your angle measure, if you want to use theta, that circle with a line through it, okay, that's fine as well. But we just tuck it in there after our trig function before our angle measure. So you're like, oh my gosh, we almost done. We are. We have one piece left, and that is to see if we have any change in our amplitude. So now that we've found the center line, we got K, we found our period, turn that into finding B. Our amplitude, you can go to the minimum or the maximum and find the distance, and again, distance is going to be positive, from either a min or a max to the center line. Whatever that distance is, and again, I did it here, I could do it here, it doesn't matter. It's a value of 2. That's my amplitude. I'm done. So it's that same process, those same 3 things I'm trying to find every time. Do I have a vertical shift? What's my period, or what's my b value? And then what's my amplitude? Same order, same way, no exceptions. Okay? Like I said, this will be posted. I'm probably going to post just this on Classroom as well, and I've got it written over there except the determine sine cosine part as we're working along here. So let's mix this up a little. Let's keep it pretty simple for the second one though. Let's do number 3. Keep this up so we got something to peek at as we go here. All right, first things first, I'm going to cover up the other side of the y-axis here. So kind of notice where it starts and where it goes. Does this seem like a sine or a cosine graph? Okay, sine. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay. So again, typically, if it starts opening down, you're going to think cosine. If it starts opening up, you would think sine is another way to help a little bit with that. We'll get there, though. So looks like a sine graph. Then again, we're going to go find our K, our vertical shift. So find your max, find your min, and again, whether it's in your head, just kind of counting with your fingers. So we're going from -6 to 2, which would be -4 divided by 2, which is -2. There's my K. Always good to put that center line in because we're going to need it for other parts later anyway. My period, again, this time I don't ever have any other mins, so max to max it shall be. Ooh. Pi over 2 to 5 pi over 2. If you subtract them, 5 pi minus pi would be 4 pi over 2, or 2 pi. Again, not the answer though. But if I really think about this for a minute, I mean, still, it doesn't hurt. It's a 2-step little quick proportion. But I'm here, I'm like, well, that's 2 pi and that's 2 pi. So if those are the same, these have to be the same. So my b value is 1. So technically, I could just put the x there and nothing else and be done with that part. But if you're like, I really want to put something there so I remember that I did it, you can put a 1, but we assume it's there anyway. So that would be okay. And then my last part is to take my min or my max, and again, we're just doing distance. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same if I did here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my A value, and I'm done. So again, hopefully, doesn't seem like anything too terribly awful. Let's play with one that's a little trickier. And then again, if we want to look at another one, we can, or if we're running into questions, we can do that too. Let's look at 6. Give myself a little bit of room for some work here. All right, we're going to nail this time. I've got confidence in you. Sine, okay. We started up. That's our normal first clue. Then we're going to be sine. So then I'm like, okay. Min plus max. Hardy. These aren't even on whole numbers this time. Nope. No, they're not. So it looks like we're at about 2.5 there, and about 1.5 here. This one I think is easier just to eyeball. Looks like my center line is at 2. So that would be my K value. And I'm like, okay, period. Let's see here. Oh, there's another max. So let's do max to max. Pi to 5 pi. 5 pi minus pi would be 4 pi. So I'm like, all right, so 2 pi over b is 4 pi. So let's see, 4 pi b over 2 pi is going to be 2. Pi's cancel, 4 divided by 2. Hardy, what did you just do? Oh my gosh. I've been doing so good. So good. This is not going to cancel if I put that as 2. I was thinking about this already. So let's try this again. 4 pi, Hardy. 4 pi. This is algebra. I am an algebra teacher. At least I pretend to be one. 2 divided by 4, let's try that again, is a half. That makes more sense. You actually need to set up the proportion if you're going to do them. And then finally, pick your min or your max and just find how far it takes you to get to the center line. Well, to get from 2.5 to 2, or from 1.5 to 2, feels like a half. Because it is. That's kind of funky. But that's how these work. So, do we want to look at another one? Okay, I've seen a couple of head nods.
Yes.
Okay. If some of you are feeling comfortable already, on the back of this sheet on 31B, okay, there's 12 graphs. Pick any 6 you want and work through that process, because I have answers for all 12. Bless you, both online and up here. So if you're feeling comfy, you do you, start doing those, get yourself set. If you're not quite comfy yet, let's play with one more of these. Let's do, let's 4, okay. Oh, we're gonna drop the hammer on the one that doesn't look so fun. Okay, let's see how this goes.
Never mind.
Are you sure? I don't mind. It's not terrible. None of these are terrible. 4, yes. Because we start up, then down, then up. So yes, we are sine on number 4. So then we look, we're like, okay, K value, let's see here. Max at 2, minimum at -6. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. There's my K. Get that drawn in here because that will be useful. Now I'm going to go looking for period. We got all sorts of options here between maxes and mins. Now you look at this though, and you're like, okay. Now this seems a little trickier because it's like I'm stuck in the middle no matter where I go, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing because you're like, okay, this looks like it's at about a half. Okay, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, we'll see. So I got 2, I got negative 6, we did our K. Let's see here. Max to max or min to min. So you're kind of looking at this and you're like, well, if I went even with these two, because I'm kind of looking and I'm like, there's really no good spot on any of these. So you're like, well, what's that going to be? So you look and you're like, well, it's about 2 lines worth. And so if I'm looking at my axis and I look at 2 lines worth, 1, 2, it looks as though my period here would be pi over 2. So you're like, ew, that's kind of tiny. Yes, it is. So if 2 pi over b is pi over 2, do the math this time, Hardy. Do the math. All I got to divide by is pi to get b by itself. So my b value would be 4. Because again, the bigger the period, the smaller the b value. The smaller the period, the bigger the b value. We have connections to make here again. And then finally, we get back to an easy part. Center line, 1, 2, 3, 4, or center line, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're set. So we are updated. We are hopefully functional. Again, your job currently, remember you have 2 of them today, or today, tomorrow. Over on the back, pick 6 of what you see there, do the steps, find the equation, and then go back and work on your exact values. When you get done with that, back on, I'm getting there. Back on 27B. What's that? You are going to either have to, ooh, I see what, let me guess, 10? So you're like, okay, what if I don't have max to max or min to min? You might have to extend your graph, but I'm going to do that off of here. Just a minute here.